The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
All right. Without further delay, sorry about that, folks. Welcome to No Credentials Required, where you don't need a press pass to talk sports. We are presented by the Belly Up Sports Media Network. My name is Ryan McCarthy. I'm one of the co-hosts. And to my right is a man who was recently fined by Raw Commissioner Adam Pearce a big amount of money for throwing a fan at Braun Strowman, Dustin Henry. Dustin, how are you doing tonight?
Doing all right. You know, my arm hurts from throwing that fan. I'm out of shape, but he deserved it. He deserved it. I am here. I'm ready to talk football with you. Very excited to get going. But before we do, Ryan, I have a very important question. Production meeting for this weekend. We are watching football at my house. I'm thinking maybe brats on the grill or maybe a smoke a pork butt. Which sounds better to you? Or possibly both? I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So your answer is brats. Should I make them beer brats and the pork butt?
This is literally Meat Mountain. So,
yeah. All right.
And speaking of Meat Mountain, if you get a chance, go and watch last night's Raw highlights, and fast forward to Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed. It is the most insane 3 minutes of your life. Rings being torn apart.
Oh man!
Fans being a fan of, well, I wouldn't say a fan. It's probably a local professional wrestler, independent professional wrestler who got hired by WWE, who was thrown. Guys going through barricades, guys going through tables, literally going through a wall. Oh my gosh! It was probably the greatest 3 minutes of anything I've ever seen.
All right. Well, you know, I don't really follow the current product as much, but I might have to check that out after that.
Neither do I, but at least watch the highlights just to kind of catch up, because it's a 3-hour show. Actually, no, it's a 2-hour show right now.
Yeah, it's going to be dropping
Netflix until they move to Netflix, I think. So, but yeah, but I like to condense stuff so I can catch things. But in the meantime, if you're watching, dear viewer, or you're listening, please follow us on social media: facebook.com/NoCardsREQ. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, it's at NoCardsREQ. YouTube.com/NoCardsREQ. Give us a like and subscribe to the podcast. Find the podcast on your preferred platform, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Music, iHeart, TuneIn, Pandora, wherever you podcast. Rate and review. It helps the show. And on Spotify, again, I mentioned it a couple times, last couple episodes. On Spotify, you can leave a comment on the current episode, which is pretty cool. So I haven't seen any comments yet, but if you're on Spotify and you're listening, give us a comment. And one more thing, on YouTube and on Twitter, hit the notification bell, because it tells you when we're live, when we got new content up, and also when we put out a new tweet. So every notification helps, every subscription helps. We appreciate it. And because we're a live show on Tuesdays, well, usually at 8:05, but it's a delay tonight. That's okay. We'll deal with it. And on Saturday mornings, except for this Saturday morning, it's going to be pre-taped. It's going to be pre-taped because I'll be away this weekend. Engage with the show. Leave a comment. We might even read it on the air. And I'm gonna play that magical sound that always helps me feel better and always helps our audience feel better.
Lift our spirits.
Lift them up. Okay, so let's talk week 2 in the NFL. And as you can see on the card, it was quite upsetting. Which leads us to our first category of the week. Week 2 in the NFL. Talk about the biggest upset. And Dustin, we'll lead off with you. What was the biggest upset to you this week in NFL Week 2. We had because there were plenty to choose from.
Oh yeah, there were so many to choose from this week. This is one of the in this young season. This is one of the best weeks of football that I can remember, just because a lot of unexpected things happened. If you were an underdog, it was a good week for you. And I initially, many times, if you could see my notebook here, I would pick one and then I'd cross it out, and then I'd pick another one and then I'd cross it out. Now, I thought long and hard about picking the game that you were going to pick, because that was monumental in my opinion. But upon further reflection, the most surprising upset for me was probably the Raiders knocking off the Baltimore Ravens, especially when you start digging into some of the stats. Okay. I usually don't do this. I'm usually just I speak from the heart type of guy, but every once in a while I'll dig into stats, because I got to kind of peel back the onion, because I was only watching this game via Red Zone. And I remember thinking to myself, I was going, Lamar looks like frustrated right now. He looks visibly frustrated. Is it just because of the heat down there? But then I looked into it. The Las Vegas Raiders defense limited his rushing attack after he gashed Lamar Jackson. I'm talking about now. He gashed the Chiefs on the ground in week 1 for 122 yards by himself. The Raiders limited him to, I believe, just 20 yards rushing on the ground for Lamar Jackson. Now, he did get him through the air a little bit for about 274 yards, I think, but no touchdowns that I saw in that one. Derrick Henry had touchdowns for Baltimore. This was a surprising game, because the Baltimore defense showed up in this one. They sacked Gardner Minshew 5 times. They also picked him off once, but it didn't matter, because the Ravens could not close out the Raiders. They let the Raiders hang around. And then next thing you know, the Raiders come away with the W in this one. Davante Adams reminding us that he's still great. Yes, is Gardner Minshew the caliber of quarterback that Derek Carr was? No, certainly not the caliber of quarterback that Aaron Rodgers was. But Davante Adams but Davante Adams proved that he could still get open in this game, and he's still a weapon you have to account for on offense. And Gardner Minshew, he turned back the clock and got some of that Minshew magic going for the rally for the Raiders to win. Also, Brock Bowers was unstoppable late in this game. He looks like he's going to be a keeper for the Raiders. I think he had 89 yards receiving at the tight end position for the Raiders. So this one shocked me the more I looked at it. The Ravens should have been able to win this game easy,
but they didn't.
Yeah.
And I was kind of shocked too, judging on the fact that I believe the Raiders and the Jets are the 2 teams that start the year on the road this year. And they both split their games. So yeah, I was expecting the Ravens to, that was my honorable mention for game I'm looking out for this week. The game I'm looking at in terms of watchability and and then if you like defense, it was very promising, especially in the first half. But then the second half, I was watching on Red Zone.
Yeah.
So because I wanted to avoid the Jets game, because I didn't want to get apoplexy because they were starting out slow again, which we addressed last night on Victory Monday. Go and check it out in the archives. But that was definitely one of those games I was looking out for, because both defenses are pretty good, and I just wanted to see how the Raiders, what they would do to stop Lamar Jackson. They did a decent job of doing that. They didn't let him get loose. Max Crosby, the TFL king, doing his thing. You gotta give him flowers, and you gotta give the Raiders defense props for getting the ball back to the offense so they could drive down the field and get the game-winning field goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember on Saturday's show you said that you wanted to see how Max Crosby would do against the Ravens, and you got your answer this week.
That indeed I did, and he showed up. He always shows up. For me, the biggest disappointment, and again, there were quite a few to choose from, but I picked the Vikings over the 49ers. And
yeah, that's the big one.
That was the big one to me. And to a lot of people, honestly. Look, Niners played by Jets last week. They looked like they hadn't missed a beat. There was no Super Bowl hangover. There was no Super Bowl disappointment hangover because they lost last year in Super Bowl overtime for the second time ever. We had overtime, and unfortunately, in that situation, Kyle Shanahan kind of forgot the rules of overtime in the playoffs. Oops. But the Vikings were definitely underdogs in this game. Definitely underdogs. You figured, all right, San Francisco's going to keep rolling. You're going to keep going. But the Vikings, they were bolstered by their week one performance at MetLife Stadium against the Giants. They kept it going. They kept the momentum going. Their impressive bend but don't break defense played well enough to stop the 49ers from getting back into the game. The backbreakers for me was that defensive stop on 4th and goal in the second quarter, and then Sam Darnold launching that football to the shield, and Justin Jefferson catching the pass, taking it the rest of the way for the 97-yard touchdown.
Yeah,
I watched that play live. I watched that play on Red Zone Live, and that was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. When he uncorked that ball and then Justin Jefferson caught it, I was sitting there. I'm going, oh my goodness, are the Vikings about to do this? And I'm not ashamed to admit it made me very happy because the Niners losing a game in the division, Seahawks 2-0, baby.
Yeah. So, and look, the Vikings, they have some work to do on the offense. I'll admit I'll say that as such. And I'm pretty sure Vikings fans say the same because the Vikings had a chance to go up big twice in this game. I mean, it was a 9-point victory. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But they had a chance to blow it out of the water. Driving down the field, Sam Darnold throws what he looked like had a receiver open. Fred Warner picks off a pass, takes it back. 49ers get back into the game. And then Vikings are driving into the third quarter, and the running back's going for a score, gets stripped.
Jones. Yeah.
Aaron Jones he caught a pass. Caught a pass from Darnold and looked like he was heading for a touchdown to put them up a couple scores and gets stripped. Goes to the ball, falls inside their own 5, or inside San Francisco's 5, and San Francisco had a chance to get back in the game, but the score could have been bigger. Been bigger based on the missed chances by the Vikings to really put it away. But good on the Vikings. 2-0 start, big win against the Giants on the road. Come back home to US Bank Stadium, to the mothership, so to speak, to the Viking ship, and get that victory in San Francisco. And from what I understand, historically, when San Francisco, the 49ers, go to Minnesota, they don't do very well. So this is another one of those notches in the chain for the Minnesota Vikings, and they moved to 2-0, and they are, I believe, they are in the lead in the NFC North.
Yeah, which is surprising.
So yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, they're right. Yep, they're 2-0. Yeah, they lead the division.
Yeah, very, very surprising. And like I said, as a Seahawks fan, sorry, Niners fans, it was pleasant to see. And the Vikings, like you're saying, were it not for Fred Warner, the Vikings could have sealed this game because Fred Warner was involved on their key defensive plays to stop the Vikings from scoring. That, I believe, he was the one that stripped Aaron Jones of that ball as well. So, I mean, Fred Warner, hats off to him. He's a great player. Oh,
all
my
pro,
goodness.
DPOY. I'm pretty sure he'll get DPOY. At this rate, he's getting DPOY.
Yeah.
It's only week 2, folks.
We got a lot of football left.
We got a lot of football left in this season. We got some comments already from your fellow 49ers. Your fellow Seahawks fan, Daniel Smooth. Congratulations. I don't know if we ever said congratulations on his engagement. We may have.
I think we did at one point, but it's worth congratulating him again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He says that the Church of McDonald make an appearance again. Well, guess what, Staniel? I got it loaded up. Let's get that praise dance in. That's all you get because it's over a minute long.
I got to get it. And Staniel, I gotta ask you, respond in the comments because you're watching. Do you think that this, I mean, the Seahawks look good. Seahawks look good, but so did the Patriots. Do you think the Patriots are better than we thought, or do you think that there's still some adjustments that need to be made by our beloved Seahawks? Because this game was closer than I wanted it to be. I can tell you that. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think he's the number 2 in Seattle now.
He also says we want chaos via Niner sacrifice, and he wanted us to cue that scene from the Temple of Doom where, or Kali rips the heart out of sacrifice, something like that.
Yeah.
He also says, "Yes, Lord." All right, we gotta move from the good to the bad. The biggest disappointment of the week, and there was a lot to choose from in terms of the disappointment. But I picked, this might be I wouldn't say surprise, but to some people, but actually is a surprise. It's going to be a surprise. I had the Giants playing against the Commanders, and the Giants are disappointing because they left points off the board.
Mm-hmm.
Graham Gano pulled his hamstring on the opening kickoff, and they didn't. Brian Dable didn't utilize his punter as the emergency kicker to kick extra points. Like, why didn't you? Why?
Yeah. I don't understand this. I was baffled by this.
Yeah, and on both their touchdowns, on their 2 touchdowns, one by Wan'Dale Robinson, the other by Malik Neighbors, had a breakout game. Over 100 yards, over 120 yards receiving. Made some big plays for the Giants, getting their opening up their offense a little bit. He showed glimpses of why he was drafted 6th overall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had a great game. Dare I say, a breakout game. But the Giants let the points off the board because they had to go for 2-point conversions twice. Daniel Jones had his passes dropped by receivers or knocked away. And that was the big difference between a win and a loss. And it not only spoiled Malik Neighbors' breakout game, but it also spoiled a really good defensive performance by the Giants. They sacked rookie quarterback Jalen Daniels 5 times. Stop me whenever you want. Yes, I had to do the 5 times.
I don't begrudge you.
I had to pay tribute to Booker T there. But this was a really good performance, a great bounce back performance by the defense, and to, so to speak, the offense too, because they opened up they were allowed to open up a little bit. And as of today, the Giants plays Graham Gano on the IR, so he'll miss the next 4 games. But otherwise, Daniel Jones had an okay day, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Devin Singletary had 95 yards on the ground. Yeah, had a decent game. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, he didn't do enough to. 6 field goals. I'm sorry, 7 field goals by the Commanders, which was the big difference, including the walk-off for the win. Their replacement, their second kicker in the span of weeks, who was,
I can't remember his name.
Austin Seibert.
Seibert was just signed.
Brought in. Mm-hmm. He was brought in. He was just signed because their previous kicker had some difficulties in Tampa Bay the week before. So they bring in Austin Seibert. He kicked 7 field goals. So if you had him in fantasy, good for you.
Yeah.
If you would happen to pick him up. Big day for you. Big day for you. Yeah.
And I got to ask you, Ryan, because we both, obviously, D. Willie, friend of the show, Commanders fan. So we always, and then my Uncle Al, big Giants fan, your brother, big Giants fan. So we always kind of keep an eye on these 2 teams. And also this division is close to our, we see a lot of Giants games. So it is what it is. But I have to tell you, as I saw Jaden Daniels running around back there and some of the hits he took, and I'm like, oh man, please don't let this be another Robert Griffin III situation. I just got a little bit of that deja vu feeling because people forget how great Robert was early in his career, how mobile he was getting around back there. And the Redskins at the time went to the playoffs, and Robert tried to come back too early, and he just got nailed by my Seahawks. It was my Seahawks that were hitting them back there, and you could just tell he shouldn't have come back, and he was never the same after that. So I'm hoping to see Jaden Daniels get a little bit more protection on those runs, because that was a scary thing.
Yeah, I mean the Giants bled yards on this day, but and give credit to Washington. They had over 33 minutes on the clock, but the Giants held. The defense held. Yeah. The defense held. So I got to give them credit for not bending but not breaking. But Washington, unfortunately, at the end, came away with the win. So, congrats to the Commanders. Hail to the Commanders. I don't know. I don't know anymore. Dustin, for you, biggest disappointment.
All right. Well, this one, I'm going to kind of go off the board here, but my biggest disappointment is the Indianapolis Colts, because I feel like they had a golden opportunity. All right. You got the Packers, who great defense. Okay. Nothing taken away from the Packers on this one, but their offense, you knew it was going to be severely hampered from what it would have been had Jordan Love been playing in this game. Malik Willis, to his credit, they didn't have him pass much. I think he was 12 of 14 passing. So when he passed the ball, he was good-ish.
When he passed the ball, it didn't have puke on it.
Yeah.
From the center.
Yeah. But I will say, though, Indy, I thought, was primed to win this game. But Anthony Richardson, he looked bad in this one. There's no other way to say it. There's no other way to say it. They went to Green Bay and they laid an egg. And when you stack them up, I thought Indy's defense was going to be able to match up a little more evenly with Green Bay. I thought Green Bay has the superior defense to Indy, but I thought they would stack up. And then I thought offensively, after Indy, that back and forth shootout with the Texans in week 1, I thought for sure they'd have enough to put the Packers away with Malik Willis, no disrespect, as the starting quarterback. But Josh Jacobs ran all over Indy, couldn't stop him. And then Malik Willis, they couldn't stop him when he was running. And then the other thing is Michael Pittman Jr. has been a disappearing act in this offense. Jonathan Taylor finally got going a little late, but the big story is Anthony Richardson throwing 3 interceptions to 1 touchdown, only completed 50% of his passes. He was not good in this one. So the Indianapolis Colts are my biggest disappointment here.
So I had mentioned to you, I said on Saturday's show, the player to watch in my mind this past week was Malik Willis. I wanted to see what they would do, how they would scheme against a team that had allowed over 200 yards rushing to Houston the week before. And they did not disappoint. 261 rushing yards by the Green Bay Packers. This Colts team is bleeding yards on the run. Their run defense is atrocious. Their run defense has allowed almost 500 total rushing yards in 2 weeks. They allowed by the third quarter, nearly the end of the third quarter, they had allowed a 238. And after that, they had only allowed 23 yards. But the week before, they allowed 213. So in 2 weeks, 213. Let me do my math here. 213 plus 261. That's 274. That's 474 yards in rushing yards allowed.
Man,
that is atrocious. And next week, let's see who they play in week 3.
Oh, that's real.
They have the Bears. So it's a bounce back game for the Colts.
Yeah, could be because the Bears, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe the Bears eventually get it right with this game. I don't know. But that'll be a good game to watch. Tune in to next show to see if any of us pick that game as our most anticipated game. Perhaps
or the bounce back game.
Yeah,
bounce back
could be. I don't know.
Or Desperation City. I mean, both teams are looking for looking for a win. You don't know. You don't know. All right, moving on to the most entertaining game, and Dustin, I'll have you lead off here. In your mind, what was the most entertaining game in week 2 of the NFL?
Well, again, this is one that fluctuated for me.
Yep.
I initially, I mean, even though it almost gave me a coronary, I liked parts of the Seahawks Patriots game. I liked especially DK scoring that touchdown and going over to the Patriots there and doing the George Washington crossing the Delaware pose. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed seeing my team get the win, even though it went to overtime. I thought the teams were very evenly matched. But there were a lot of games to pick from. And then there's, of course, one game that we'll probably get into later in the show that was very entertaining for me because I laughed a bunch while watching it. And you and I were texting about it. And I think my uncle Al was involved in that one as well. But for me, the most entertaining game, and partially it could have been because I was out on the patio smoking a cigar, watching on my iPad at this time. But to me, it's got to be, it's a lot of buildups to tell you all that it is Bengals Chiefs. Bengals Chiefs was my most entertaining game. I did not think I would pick this game if I were to line them all up and see them going into week 2. I wouldn't have picked this. But I picked it for a few reasons. One, immediately when the two teams started playing, it felt like a playoff atmosphere. I know it's early to say that, but these two teams have genuine animosity for each other. All the Burrowhead stuff, people have built it up doing Burrow versus Mahomes, and people saying Burrow is better than Mahomes, but he can't stay healthy. There's been a whole narrative surrounding these two teams, and thankfully, Cincinnati showed up much improved from their week 1 performance. And this one felt like a heavyweight fight. The Bengals defense was able to pick off Patrick Mahomes twice, which is something I can't remember seeing in recent memory. And then both defenses were opportunistic. They weren't dominant in this game, but they both were opportunistic and made plays when they needed to. The Chiefs had a fumble recovery, and then Andy Reid doing Andy Reid things. They had a backup left tackle score a touchdown in there. So this game had a lot of different things. And as I said, Joe Burrow looked much improved. The Bengals overall looked much improved. Pacheco ran well, as he always does, but now they won't have him for a few games. I think he broke his fibula.
Yep.
So he is out. So that'll be interesting. But this game had it all, and it just felt big. And of course, the Chiefs win on a last-second field goal to seal the victory and bring themselves to 2-0. The Bengals get a tough loss, but there was a lot to like about this game. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, I have a little mini complaint for the NFL with how week 2 went. 10 games in the 1 p.m. spot, in the 1 p.m. slot. 10. Why?
Yeah.
Why were there only 10? Why were there 10 games in the 1 p.m. time slot and only 3? And 2 of those games were, at least one of those games was pretty atrocious. One game was atrocious. Steelers Broncos was a human atrocity. And if you want to make to make terrorists break, initially I'd said show them Jets Titans. You should have showed them Steelers Broncos, because that game it felt like, especially in the latter part of the game, in the second half, every offensive play by both teams, flag. We have penalties on both teams, holding on the defense, illegal contact on the defense, holding on the offense, where we replay the down. It's like this game dragged on forever, and it was a Spiro Didi special. Your mortal enemy, your arch nemesis in broadcasting.
I can't deal with it. He's back, and he returns every fall and winter to torment me.
But that's okay. He only said touchdown once in this game. Once, because the Broncos offense was atrocious, as well as the Steelers offense. I don't know how you're going to get. I don't think they'll score 20 points once in this season. It'll be a miracle. And they've only scored 1 touchdown in their 2 wins. The rest have been field goals.
Yeah. No, it was, I was thinking the same way. I'm like, what is this? Because this feels like, you know what it felt like, Ryan? It felt like the red zone. Now, I love red zone. Okay. I love
do
it
too.
with
Love
all
me some
my
Scott
heart.
Hansen. Did you see when he got distracted by Dua Lipa? You can keep Dua Lipa on the screen. I'm
yeah. He's like, well, I guess that's for 60 minutes. Well, I'll see you later, Dua.
Yeah, I second that motion there, Scott Hansen, Dua Lipa,
Yeah.
Mia Likey.
But I will say the heavily weighted early window, and then there was almost nothing going on in the
Ridiculous.
late window. It reminds me of in my opinion, what is often the worst red zone Sunday of the season, and that is the Sunday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because you already have the Thanksgiving games have gone, which there are 3 of those now. And then you're going to have a repeat of the Black Friday game. So especially that late window, there's nothing there. There's nothing there on the red zone Sunday. So it kind of felt like that with there being so few games late.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's be honest, Kyler in the Cardinals dump truck the Rams there.
Ooh, man, we'll talk about that performance in a few minutes. But this week is much more balanced. There are 6 games in the 1 p.m. slot. And again, when I come to power, we will stagger the 1 o'clock game schedule. And actually, what we'll do is that we'll do 1 o'clock games, and we'll also do 2 o'clock games. Have the 1 o'clock Central Time. 1 o'clock. They start at 1 o'clock Central Time. So we'll stagger between time zones for the early games. Then in the late games, we have 4 and 4:25, 4:05 and 4:25 starts.
Okay. All right.
So
I
NFL,
second
if
this
you're
motion.
listening, thank you. NFL, if you're listening, I'm not selling out. I'm buying in. Okay. So for me, the most entertaining game, and again, most of these games, again, I watch Red Zone because I can't stand commercials. I can't stand how after every down, it just seems there's commercials on. I hate it. And I'm going to hate watching Thursday's game for Jets Patriots because it's on Amazon, the Thursday night game at MetLife Stadium. It's going to be commercials like every other second. I hate it. Hate it to death. That's why I watch Red Zone. Like I'm the one who I'm the one who's going to take credit, my family, for getting my dad into Red Zone. Because I'll tell you why. A short story. So one day after church, it was a couple of years ago. It was 2021. This was the year that the Jets went to London to play Atlanta, and we recorded the game. Went to my parents' house. We're gonna eat some lunch, watch the Jets game, see how they did. Then the Falcons went up big, and I said, I don't want to watch this anymore.
Yeah.
My mom and dad go, oh, okay. I said, Dad says, what do you want to watch? He asked, Fubo subscription. I said, have you ever watched Red Zone? He goes, what's Red Zone? I said, it's 7 hours of commercial-free football. He goes, turn it on right now. Because he hates commercials too.
Yeah.
So whenever this time of year comes around, Dad renews his Fubo subscription, and I get 7 hours of commercial-free football. And I watch Fubo up until around April, and then he cuts it off.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, well, thankfully he leaves it on long enough so I can watch the Devils play.
Yeah. Yeah, that's at least good. You can watch the majority of the season.
Yes. So going back to my main topic, most entertaining game in my mind was Buccaneers Lions.
This was a good one.
And especially early, if you're a Lions fan, and Julie from Michigan, I'm pretty sure she's gonna watch on replay or listen to it later. But she'll probably pop up in the comments eventually. But the first part of the game, Aiden Hutchinson had 3 sacks in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Had 4.5 sacks in the game. The record for sacks in a game for a Detroit Lion is 5.5. So he was 1 off the record. He finished 1 off the record.
And they originally had credited him as 5, and then they downgraded one of them to a half sack.
Come on, NFL, what are you doing?
I was unhappy about that.
Yes, as was I, because Aiden Hutchinson's damn good football player. So the Lions did their part. Their defense did their part. They held the Buccaneers offense, who had a pretty decent game the week before, to just under 230 yards total offense. Baker Mayfield fell off a little bit, 12 of 19, 185 yards, and one touchdown, one interception. Sacked 5 times. Unlike last week when he had a spectacular game with 289 yards and 4 touchdowns. The defense, look, say what you want about Todd Bowles. I was a Todd Bowles fan when he was coach of the New York Jets. The only problem is he was stuck with an incompetent GM who could not support the offense. Like every time the draft came up, we're going to draft defense in the first round. We're going to draft defense in the first round. It's like, my guy, you realize there's an offense too? And he got paired together with Sam Darnold. And again, they did nothing to help Sam Darnold. Became a journeyman. And we'll talk about teams, franchises who don't offer any other help to their franchise quarterbacks coming up a little bit later. But Baker Mayfield was in that situation with the Browns.
Yeah.
He had a great first couple of years, led the Browns to the playoffs in 2020, won their first round game, won the wild card game against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, took the Kansas City Chiefs to the death in the divisional playoff, almost beat them. Then he fell off a little bit. He admitted that he played hurt. He shouldn't have played hurt. He should have gone out.
Yeah, his shoulder, right?
His shoulder. Traded to the Panthers. And
then,
released by the Panthers. And he signed with the Rams. Won a game with like 3 days in the playbook. Released on a free agent contract because Matthew Stafford was coming back. Signed with the Buccaneers on a 1-year prove-it deal. Led them to the playoffs. Won the division again. Led them to the playoffs. And I was high on the Buccaneers to win the division. Not just finish. And I will say this, not just finish like by the skin of their teeth, like barely over 500. I think they'll convincingly win that division. I think they'll win at least, at this rate, they're going to win at least 11 games this year. And say what you want about Todd Bowles. Oh, he was a bad coach when he was at the Jets. Guess what? Bill Belichick was a crappy coach when he was with the Cleveland Browns. Then he goes to New England. Well, he comes back to New England as a defensive coordinator for Bill Parcells, and goes to the Jets. Then goes back to New England. Look what he did there. Todd Bowles knows how to scheme against the Lions. He schemed the Lions to death in this game. Schemed them to death. Yes, they a lot of yards. Jared Goff, 324 passing yards. Total rushing for Detroit, 139 rushing yards. Time of possession in the game was somewhere.
Real-time research.
33 minutes, almost 34 minutes. So they had almost 8 minutes more than the Lions had the ball 8 minutes more than the Buccaneers. But the Buccaneers did what they had to do to win the game. They picked off Jared Goff twice. They did not allow him to throw a touchdown. The Lions were limited. Only one touchdown. David Montgomery had a touchdown, and that was it. They limited Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 119 receiving yards. The guy you had your eye on this week, Jameson Williams, had a pretty decent game, but otherwise, 5 receptions on 11 targets. Tampa Bay did their job. Todd Bowles did his job. And good for him. Good for him to get this win. And next week, the Buccaneers play the Broncos next week.
Oh, man. That's a win for the Bucs.
Oh, my goodness.
We won't be watching, but that's a win for the Bucs.
No, that will be the self-hatred game of the week if you're a Broncos fan, because the way that they played last week against Pittsburgh, you definitely want to hate yourself. So, but that was an entertaining game all the way up to the end, because you thought the Bucs had the game over. Detroit had 3 timeouts. Dan Campbell played it pretty well, and that he kept his 3 timeouts up until the last minute of the game. Yeah, and then the Lions got within striking distance of getting the game, the touchdown to win the game. But bend don't break. Sometimes you just gotta play that kind of style of defense. And they did it. They did it.
And I mean, Dan
Good on
Campbell, he did Dan Campbell things in this game. They had their punter throwing for a
the fake punt, that was beautiful.
the fake punt, that was fantastic. But I'll say too, it's just one of those things, and I never thought I'd be here, but Baker Mayfield is just becoming one of those enjoyable players to watch because he's starting to put together a track record. He kind of looks like the guy that he was his first couple seasons in Cleveland, where he would improbably lead these teams on these comebacks, or at least have them fighting tooth and nail, even if they came up short. So, Staniel in the comments says Todd Bowles is a sneaky good coach. I would say the same thing.
He is.
I would say Baker is he's redeemed his career. He's a sneaky good quarterback now.
Baker is becoming the class of 2018, the draft class of 2018, the quarterbacks, with the exception of Josh Rosen, slowly starting to redeem themselves. Sam Darnold's having a great bounce back season in Minnesota. Baker Mayfield last year and this year so far.
Yeah.
Pretty good season.
And I still say, and now we know, as you'll get into it later in the show, but I was just a little early on that Baker Mayfield breakout when he was in Carolina. Remember, I predicted he was going to come out on fire.
You predicted the Panthers would be a wild card team that year. Because of Baker. Unfortunately, they have an owner who was a complete. All right. Pardon me for swearing, but it's British, so it's acceptable. David Tepper is a twat. All right. Before we take our commercial break, let's go to the comment section because we got plenty of them.
Yeah.
Daniel Smooth's coming back. You asked him a question about the Seahawks. He says, you asked him which part of the team needs help, and he said both. Offensive line needs help. He thinks he'll trade for a guard. That will help. Washington's Brandon Scherf is in his list. Actually, he's in Jacksonville now. Just to give you a heads up, Brandon Scherf is in Jacksonville. He also says the Patriots will be getting better down the road. Mayo's a keeper. Not this Thursday.
Yeah, but I have to say the Patriots have surprised me so far. We all threw dirt on them.
I said that they were the Oakland A's of this year, and that they would probably go over the win total that Vegas has projected for them. I think the total is 4.5 right now. So, or it was beginning of the season was 4.5. So, and their odds to win the Super Bowl were like monumental. But hey, if they get more than 4 wins, I consider that a victory for them. Just don't do it against the Jets. All right, we're gonna exercise those ghosts on Thursday night, because the last time the Patriots and the Jets played on a primetime game, that was the ghost game.
Oh man,
we're gonna exercise that ghost. Who are you gonna call? Aaron Rodgers. He also says, Taylor Smooth also says, or if you want to boost the Hawks defense, a potential reunion with Jadeveon Clowney.
You know what? I wouldn't be mad at it. Because didn't he sign in Carolina to kind of finish his career?
He did.
Let's get him out of there. Let's get him back in Seattle. He did well with us.
No, Douglas, get on the phone with the Panthers. We need somebody to replace Jermaine Johnson.
Come on,
Hassan
John.
Reddick's being a jerk.
John, you've got a pre-existing relationship with Jadeveon. Use it.
He also says Bruce Irvin tore RG3's ACL. He remembers that day well.
Yeah, that was. I'm obviously a Hawks fan, so I was rooting for my team, but that was tough to watch, even for me, because you could just tell he shouldn't have been out there, and he was trying to gut the win out for his team, but he should not have been out there. He was not ready. That was bad to watch.
And look who's in the comments. Dr. Lady talking something other than baseball. She says, I'm glad how close the Patriots-Seahawks game was. Pat's decent so far this season. Until Thursday night.
They are. They're scaring. They were scaring me a little bit on Sunday. I was in the Discord a little bit, talking about it.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the rest of oh my God, I can't talk. The rest of week 2, and I'm going to go on an extended rant coming up. You are tuned in to No Credentials Required. Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, we can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
Boop, 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 boop.
You dick. You know who's not a dick? SeatGeek. We're going to get this canceled. NFL is well underway. Baseball playoffs are on their way. Hockey season on its way. NBA, don't care. But it's on its way. But you can get your tickets. Look for the best prices anywhere on SeatGeek.com. They have their pricing tool where you can look for the best seats. It has the green dot on the section you most desire. And in addition to getting yourself some pretty good seats at a decent price, you could save $20 off your first order of $50 or more by using promo code BellyUpSports in the checkout. With hockey season coming up, Dustin, I'm going to go to New Jersey in December. We're gonna hopefully not see Connor Bedard getting his jaw broken in the glass, like in July, like in January, and Jack Hughes get his arm busted again like last year. So for the Devils Blackhawks game, it's in December. So I'm going to use promo code. I'm going to use the promo code using a different email address this time.
Oh, nice.
Promo code BellyUpSports and getting $20 off my tickets. But it's not just sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, plays, Broadway. If you want to go to if you're near the Broadway, get yourself some tickets there. Anything that requires a box office ticket, you can probably find it on SeatGeek, and you can save with promo code BellyUpSports at checkout for $20 off your first order of $50 or more. Sorry, SeatGeek. Don't cancel our relationship with Belly Up Sports from my podcast.
No, please don't. And also Adam Silver. You can use SeatGeek to buy tickets to your games since obviously Ryan won't be going.
Nope. No, thank you. Speaking of performances, let's talk about the most notable performances in week 2 of the NFL. And I'll lead off. Actually, you know what, Dustin? Since I'm gonna lead off with our last segment of the show. So why don't you go ahead and tell us which player or players impressed you the most in week number 2?
Well, one of them I'm going to talk about very shortly because we already talked about him. On the defensive side of the ball, it's Aiden Hutchinson. He had the 4.5 quarterback sacks, which was.
Let me play it.
Oh yeah,
Can't have him locked up. He's important to the defense.
Aiden Hutchinson, ladies and gentlemen.
Aiden Hutchinson, he is important to the defense. Still, I'm gonna love that clip for the rest of time. But on the offensive side of the ball, and this will serve a little bit, and this is becoming a disturbing trend for me on the show. I had to apologize to Kyrie Irving. Everyone knows this. I had to apologize to him profusely. And I've had to make other apologies too. And I guess you could just line this one up because Alvin Kamara had 3 rushing touchdowns against that vaunted Cowboys defense. 3 rushing touchdowns. 3 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown for a total of 4 touchdowns and 180 total yards from scrimmage. I said that Alvin Kamara has lost a step. I said he wasn't what he used to be. He heard me. And I'm sorry, Alvin, because you have summarily destroyed teams for the first 2 weeks of the season. So those are my 2 most notable performances from this week. How about you, sir?
All right. So defense, I'm going to go full homer here. Do I have the alert? I did not upload the alert in the new Ellens. That's okay. We're going to go homer alert in this one. And with the absence of Jermaine Johnson, who is unfortunately out for the rest of the season, once again, Achilles tendon getting ruptured. Happened to a New York Jet, a premier New York Jets, a big name for that defense. This time it's the defense. Last year was Aaron Rodgers. This year it's Jermaine Johnson, who had a stellar year last year, was poised to have another big breakout year. And unfortunately, he just stepped incorrectly. And unfortunately, he ruptures his Achilles tendon. However, in his spot, Will McDonald had a great game. Will McDonald was last year's first round pick. A lot of Jets fans were saying he was a bust. Stop saying that because it was only his first year. He had only 3 sacks in his first year. He had 3 sacks in this game against the Tennessee Titans, including 4, and to go with 4 tackles. A breakout game. Hopefully this performance continues. He's going to need some help down the road. Hopefully the Jets can figure out the Hassan Reddick situation. If they can't, Hassan Reddick's going to miss out on something special, but they can look for other options to replace Jermaine Johnson. On offense, Marvin Harrison Jr., another player who people, he's another player that people jump the gun on, jump to conclusions on. Oh, he only had 1 catch he only had 1 catch last week. Is he a bust now? Can we please stop the conversation about busts?
Yeah.
Because they didn't have a catch. He only had 1 catch in their first game. Marvin Harrison, in the first quarter alone, on the first 3, in the first quarter, 4 receptions on 8 throughout the game. He had 8 targets throughout the game, but he had 4 receptions, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a 60-yard touchdown and a complete beatdown. The Los Angeles Rams, who are in trouble, by the way. The LA Rams are in deep trouble. A lot of people had them picked as a potential wild card pick. I left them out of the playoff picture. And you're starting to see why. Puka Nacua, he's on IR. Cooper Kupp, he might be going to IR.
Yeah.
Got a lot of guys who are falling falling to injury right now. They're in trouble. I think they're in trouble. And but I gotta say, Marvin Harrison, standout performance, 4 receptions. The first quarter alone, like I am on one of my fantasy teams. By the end of the first quarter, he had 29 points.
Yeah.
29 points at the end of the first quarter. That's all he did all the game. That's all he had to do.
Yeah.
Because James Conner had a good game, 122 yards on the ground with a touchdown. Kyler Murray did pretty impressive, 266 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns to Harrison, 1 to Elijah Higgins. I mean, could we see Dustin? I gotta give you your flowers. You said keep your eye on the Cardinals this year. I don't know if they're going to get a playoff spot, but right now they're looking like a team that could potentially be knocking on the door in December.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I am not looking forward to having to play them in the division, especially.
I'm not looking forward to I'm not looking forward to seeing the Jets play them in November.
Yeah. They're tough. They're going to be tough, and I mean, we've heaped a lot of people have said a lot of things about one Kyler Murray, but he was making smart decisions in this game. He looks like a different player, and I'm glad because I can only hypothesize that somebody from Arizona's management pulled him aside after the game when he said it's not my job to get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. I hope they pulled him aside and they said yes, it is, and he obviously listened because. I hope he realizes now the monumental talent. It's early, and I don't want to foist huge expectations on the young man, but it appears he has a monumental talent playing at wide receiver for him. And James Conner is one of those guys. He just goes out and does well, and nobody really talks about him, provided he can stay healthy. He's going to have a good year. And the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon's got something cooking down there.
He does. And I've got an possible early pick for most intriguing matchup already for our recording on Thursday. I've got most intriguing matchup. So,
oh man,
it might involve the Cardinals.
Could be. I don't know. You'll have to tune in to find
out. To find out on Saturday morning on the pre-recorded version. But leave us comments there too. All right.
And we will have a food take. Don't
We
worry.
will have a food take. We promise you that's gonna be that's gonna be a new Saturday. It's gonna be a new Saturday brunch tradition. It's gonna be a new Saturday tradition on No Credentials Required. Food takes. Food takes at the beginning. Then we go into our topics. By the way, speaking of food, I think next time if I ever go back to Applebee's, I'm gonna order like this.
Oh yeah, eating
Menu.
good in the neighborhood.
Eating good in the neighborhood. Dan Campbell's in the neighborhood. I'm gonna order my food like this so nobody knows what I'm gonna order. That's how they did in the commercial.
Yeah, I'll have the same.
For those of you on audio, I'm putting a notebook in front of my face so nobody sees what I'm can read my lips.
You do. It kind of reminds me of when you grew that stash a couple of years ago to look like Andy Reid.
Actually, I just shaved my beard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
For Nick's birthday. That was for your brother-in-law's birthday.
Yeah, that's what it was. You shaved the beard.
My sister was like, "Ugh, grow your beard back." I'm like, I can't grow any faster. Ugh, grow it back. So creepy.
Oh man,
you just don't appreciate. I look pretty good. I look like Louis Armstrong. From was it Louis Armstrong? I can't remember his last name from Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh,
can't remember his last name. Oh, it'll come to me.
Yeah.
All right. Hottest individual takeaway from week 2. Carolina Panthers. You're terrible. You're a terrible organization. All right. At the behest of your owner, you took a chance on Chase Young. Chase Young's talented. All right. Don't get me wrong. Chase Young is talented. Bryce Young. Chase Young is San Francisco, I think. Edge rusher.
I think so.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Is he with them? Anyway.
I can't remember, but yeah. Bryce Young.
No, he's with the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Anyway, Bryce Young. They take Bryce Young because David Tepper said overruled Frank Reich. Frank Reich wanted to take CJ Stroud. David Tepper said, nah, you're taking Bryce Young. All right, we're taking Bryce Young. So you set him up for failure immediately. And I gotta say this, it's a twofold problem in the NFL with a lot of these skill position players entering the draft too soon because somebody told them that, yeah, you've got NFL talent. Yes, but also no. Yeah. You need time to develop yourself physically. Also need to develop your mind as well. And some of the best quarterbacks in history have sat first before they were thrust in, before they earned their role. There's some exceptions out there. Mm-hmm. CJ Stroud was one of those exceptions last year.
Yeah.
He's taken second, and he had himself a fantastic year where he led the Houston Texans to not only an AFC South division title, but also a win in the wild card, very convincing win in the wild card, and they almost took the number 1 seed to the limit. They took them to the limit in the divisional round. But let's get back to the Carolina Panthers. After the game on Saturday, where their home opener, the Chargers absolutely whooped them. That was our self-hatred game of the week. You had to hate yourself or be that big of a fan to want to watch or go to that game. Yesterday, Tom Pelissero comes out with the news that Bryce Young has been benched and they're starting Andy Dalton this week. And I noted on social media, particularly on Twitter, I said, and I quote, drafting a quarterback that high and shoving him into a starting role without equipping him without a good offensive line and a run game to mitigate his mistakes is a recipe for disaster. And I said, yes, I realized that he was last season's number 1 overall pick, but the Panthers still did nothing to help Bryce Young. It's an indictment on bad ownership, making bad management, making hasty decisions at the behest of a bad owner. And I dropped the same thing in our Discord, which you can find the link below in the description. And I posted the same news, and I said, life lessons. Number 1, don't take a quarterback first overall unless you know he's a sure thing. Number 2, if it's a sure thing, do everything you can short of unaliving other people to make sure that he gets a chance to grow. And number 3, David Tepper is an awful owner. Look, I've seen this movie before. It happened with the New York Jets several times over the past couple decades. The most recent example being the aforementioned Sam Darnold. drafted in 2018. Mike McCagnon traded their first round pick. He moved up in the draft to take Darnold because he was so high on him, but failed to give him a decent offensive line, a person and other personnel around him to get him to develop. He also was thrust into the spot. He was also thrust into the starting role, and it looked great. It had looked very auspicious in their first game when they blew out Detroit by 20 on Monday Night Football. It was a great game. I was like, yes, Sam Darnold. And he threw an interception on his first pass, which was a pick six. But after that, he showed some brilliant glimpses. But then Todd Bowles got fired, got stuck with Adam Gase, and his career stalled. No offensive line, no talent around him to build around him, no running game to mitigate his mistakes. 2019, he saw ghosts. That infamous game on Monday night where he says, "I see ghosts, I see ghosts," after his comeback after sitting a month with mono. And he was a journeyman. He got traded to the Panthers of all teams. Got traded to the Panthers. Then he signed with San Francisco. Sat most of that year behind Brock Purdy. Played in week 18 in a throwaway game because the 49ers had wrapped the division. They had wrapped up the number 1 seed. And then he's sit back into free agency mode again. Goes to Minnesota. He's having a decent year with Minnesota. 2-0. Couple touchdowns, couple interceptions, but that's to be expected of Sam Darnold. But coming back to Bryce Young, same thing's happening to him. The same thing is happening to him. Being thrust into a starting position immediately. Not only was his coach fired partway through last season.
Yeah.
He's stuck with a new coach and the new system this season. Similar to Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Bowles was fired after 2018. They bring in Gase in 2019, and he just messed him up. But again, Panthers did nothing to mitigate the problem of a bad offensive line. They have no running game. I mean, I can't name probably one running back from their team, Chuba Hubbard, but he's a second-year guy, and he doesn't really factor in for many carries. And they have basically no receivers. And I jokingly said in, I think, Discord, I think to you and your Uncle Al, I had the meme of the quote from Denny Lemieux from Slapshot. It says, Adam Thielen to Panthers management after this game, trade me right effing now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how Adam Thielen must feel, because he signed I think a 3-year contract to help Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't throw the ball because he's being chased all over the place. And it was evident on Sunday when we saw that one play where Chase Young is getting flushed out of the pocket. Adam Thielen's wide open. He's waving his hand.
Mm-hmm.
He sees Bryce Young get sacked, and you just see the frustration in his eyes. You see it in his demonstrative demeanor. So Carolina Panthers, you need not only help with your player personnel, your owner needs an intervention. And I understand Tepper was part of the ownership group with Pittsburgh Steelers at one point before he decided to try it on his own, running his own football team. But that dude needs an intervention. That dude needs to be sat down. I know he's a billionaire and he's got money, and he got basically FU money. That's what he bought the Panthers with. Basically a lot of FU money. But you're not helping. In 7 seasons, he's had 6 head coaches. I'm pretty sure Dave Canales is going to be fired midway through this season.
Yeah, I mean, he probably is going. Sad to say, but Canales isn't going to get a long-term shot with this. No, and that's the sad thing too, because Carolina. Think about it this way: a couple of years ago, over almost a decade ago, they were in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm.
They were in the Super Bowl. They were a team that could contend every single year. He takes over as owner, and he is just terrible. He's terrible. Yeah,
well, and Jerry Richardson, the previous owner,
he wasn't an angel either.
No, the previous owner of the Panthers. There's a reason he's not there anymore. And I mean, if you want, you can do your own. You can look back to see what some of those reasons were, but they weren't good. So you were hoping for Panthers fans. Oh, okay. Tepper's going to take him over, and he's been so far in his short tenure owning the Carolina Panthers, he's been the definition of a meddlesome owner. Doesn't want his football people to do the job that they need to do. And I agree with you a lot, Ryan, about, Bryce Young. It's early in this guy's career, and you might have ruined him already because you didn't give him an offensive line. I mean, look at David Carr. He got hit so much with the Texans when he was drafted in 2002. He never was the same after that. He never was the same. And you don't know if Bryce Young's confidence, where it'll ever be. And you could argue, too, DJ Moore would be a great person to have on this team to help mentor the young quarterback, but you traded him away to Chicago to go get
Bryce Young.
So there, it's just this is a terrible thing. And just to piggyback off what you said a little bit, I'd be curious to know what Bryce Young's college coaches had to say about Bryce Young when and if the Panthers were doing their due diligence on Bryce Young, which you would hope they would, because they were going to pick him high, even though Frank Reich did not want to. It's well documented. But I'm going to go back earlier in the history of your beloved New York Jets. I remember, and this quarterback had some early success. Mark Sanchez. Sanchez himself.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to when Mark Sanchez was coming out, because he came out early, his college coach at the time,
at USC.
Yes. His college coach at the time was Pete Carroll. And if you remember, if you go back to that time, Pete Carroll pleaded with Mark. He said, "Do not come out. You are talented, but you are not ready." Pete Carroll himself said that Mark Sanchez was not ready. Mark Sanchez left college and had early success, but then we know how the rest of that story turned out. And even more tellingly, when Mark Sanchez was available, Pete Carroll, after bringing him in for a workout for the backup job in Seattle, did not sign Mark. So Mark never recovered from some of that stuff. He's more well known for the butt fumble now, and the fact that I think he does a good job announcing games. I will say that I've enjoyed Sanchez being on the call of a few games.
Yeah, I mean, and thankfully they've buried the hatchet in that regard. They buried the hatchet long ago. They have a good relationship now. Even if they're acquaintances, they're still a better relationship than what they had before. So, but yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Jets fan. I've seen my fair share of bust quarterbacks in my fandom. From Browning Nagel to Mark Sanchez, who I first good couple of years, but he was aided by a great defense.
Yes.
And a run game a run game aided by an offensive line who would run over everybody.
Yeah, they still had Alan Faneca back, or no, they had
Faneca. It was Alan Faneca, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, Nick Mangold.
Yeah, Mangold. That's who I was trying to think of.
Damian Woody. And I was trying to remember who was at right guard. I forgot who was at right guard. But then going back to the early 2000s, I think, no, that was Faneca. Early 2000s was Faneca. So Faneca, Kevin Mawai, that was the thing with the Jets. They built good offensive lines so their quarterback could be protected. They could develop a running game with Curtis Martin. And later, Sean Green and Thomas Lewis, I want to say.
The Jets, I'm trying to think, they had LaDainian at one point.
They did have LaDainian in 2000. He
ran well for them.
Yep, that was 2010.
Was it Thomas Jones they had for a while?
Thomas Jones, yes.
He ran well.
Yep, and Leon Washington doing his thing with the in the special teams, later becoming a member of the Seattle Seahawks.
Yep.
So, but yeah, those teams were incredible. Brandon Moore, that was the guard. Brandon Moore. I was trying to think who the other and Alan Faneca was on that 2009 team. But yeah, they built an offensive line that could protect the quarterback and help the run game. And then for some reason they couldn't develop after that. Sanchez, they give the ball to Sanchez and said, "All right, team's yours now," and he suffered because of it. Absolutely suffered, and they haven't been able to recover since. So Carolina is in for a good decade and a half of futility if they keep up this pace, because of one David Tepper.
Yeah.
It's typified by this benching this week.
Yeah, this is, I mean, yeah, you feel for Bryce Young, and some of it is on Bryce Young. To be fair, some
To
of
be
it
fair.
he's got to make some better decisions. But to your point, he was not put in a position where he could even do that.
No,
You know,
no. You have to make life easy for your quarterback to get him to develop, or sit him for a year. You have Andy Dalton, who is a capable, longtime NFL veteran. Should have sat Bryce Young for a year, let him develop. Unfortunately, the system switched because they fired their coach again, and they brought in a new offensive coordinator. And he's got to learn the system all over again.
Yep.
So
no continuity.
no continuity at all. And your Uncle Al will conclude there. Your Uncle Al has the last comment. He says, John Mara doesn't need an intervention. He needs a dope slap. Well, he must have joined in late because we weren't talking about John Mara. We were talking about David Tepper.
Yeah, but I think he was just saying, because you said Tepper needed an intervention. He was saying
Right.
John Mara needs something else.
John Mara needs to get himself some Ambien so he can sleep at night, based on the quote that he had, based on what he said on Hard Knocks when he said, if you don't sign Saquon if Saquon doesn't come back, I'm not going to sleep well.
Yeah. John's
Something
not
to that
sleeping
extent.
well now.
Nope, he ain't. All right, we're going to get out of here. But before we get out of here, we just want to remind you about our social media pages. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/NoCredsREQ, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok @NoCredsREQ, youtube.com/@NoCredsREQ. Hit the notification bell for Twitter and YouTube. Give us a like. And on the podcast side, subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Music, iHeart, TuneIn, Pandora. Leave us a comment on the episode on Spotify. Leave us a review anywhere that is that has a platform where you can leave a review, and leave us a 5-star rating. Those always help. Ratings and reviews and comments always are a big help. So thank you for tuning into this edition of No Credentials Required, where you don't need a press pass to talk sports. We're presented by the Belly Up Sports Media Network. Don't forget, the Saturday version will be pre-recorded, but it'll be up at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. The podcast version will be available shortly thereafter. The replay will be on Rumble at 12 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. So thank you for watching. If you're watching live, if you're watching on the replay, we appreciate you. Tune in. We'll be live. We'll be back live next Tuesday. Victory Monday will be on Monday. And the regular show, the OG show, will be back on Tuesday at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. So tune in then. Until then, have a great day, or have a great weekend. We'll be back live on Tuesday. Enjoy the football, and we will talk to you very soon.
Good night, everybody.
And
good
morning, everybody.
Or
we saving that for Saturday?
Yeah, I'm still gonna do it.
All right.
I was all thrown off. I'm like, what I forget?
No, take two. We'll see you live next Tuesday, but the replay but pre-record show on Saturday. Have a great night, everybody.
For shame, David Tepper. For shame.
For shame.